Good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View with myself, Baz. I hope you've had a fantastic day after Brendan Rodgers making headlines around Scotland and around Europe, to be fair, about his conversations and his comments after the game yesterday. Here's to Brendan for deflecting the media from the Sevconians and deflecting the media from the meltdown from them, and talking about a situation that I think that Brendan Rodgers didn't really need to speak about. No one asked him about the songs. He was asked a direct question about a player coming to Celtic. But anyway, it is what it is. There's lots to talk about tonight. Rodgers, and there's lots to listen into. First of all, just say good evening to everyone that is in the chat. It's not taking me right back to the beginning. BR will stop the love and nonsense with Taylor. He needs to be gone by signing a new contract. Everyone knows it. Just get shot of him. Stop the Taylor begging to him. Stay, says Paul Baird. Paul Baird's in the house. Stephen Johnson's in the house. Dave Morton's in the house. Mr. Quinn's in the house. Mr. McEwen's in the house. I'm going to run through. Jim is in the house. Dave Morton's in the house. Jim McClarty is in the house. Chris D. Taylor storming off the park. Ibrox and then up the tunnel in the cream puff. Definitely added to the bee in Brendan's bonnet about the groans of backwards passing, which happens for most home teams. If Taylor wanted more from fans, then maybe he shouldn't hold the club to ransom. Better players have tried it and they've gone in seconds. You should be grateful and be a better professional attitude. The comments are flying in this evening already. Carly's in the house. Chilpel's in the house. Chris D is in the house. And sorry if I've missed you out. Scenaries is in the house. Parkhead Boy, Big Rab C is in the house, and Ali Boy 1888. Let's get on with it then. There's loads of Celtic news out there, obviously. The Tierney one, we need to talk about that, obviously. The rumour is not going away. Celtic and Brendan Rodgers have stoked the fire. Let's turn this on its head. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic are fully to blame for the Kieran Tierney situation, and I think Brendan Rodgers. I mean, somebody give him say the next time he does a press conference. I hope someone in joking form says to Brendan. I mean, if I was there, I'd stand up, Brendan, and I'd say, "All right, Brendan, have you had your Snickers today?" I'd actually ask him if he'd had his Snickers today, because it was like the adverts for the Snickers, where you've got them in a complete tantrum, and then they have their Snickers bar, and it's like, right, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I think that's what happened to Brendan after the game yesterday. He wasn't really, himself, was he? And I don't know if it was fans all around the stadium that were singing Kieran Tierney, or if it was one or two sections. To be honest, I don't care. Celtic have brought this to the attention of the fans. The Celtic Foundation were at the beginning of this story, picturing him with Brendan Rodgers. Celtic Foundation did not need to release that picture. Celtic knew what they were playing at. Right? Celtic are the cause of this. Celtic have fucked up with the PR. It's as simple as that. Celtic have messed up big time. I could go to Snickers right now, says Chilpel. I think we all could. Rodgers and Snickers are in a twist. His Snickers are in a twist. And I hope if he's watching, he takes it in jest. But really, I think it was a situation that got a little bit out of hand. And I'm surprised at Brendan, because Brendan's usually one of these calm and calculated managers that doesn't give anything away. He doesn't give anything away when it comes to transfers. And I'm surprised. I am surprised that he even acknowledged. I mean, he's done well in the past to play off situations that have maybe happened with fans in the past, and saying it's nothing to do with him. But this time he decided to get involved last night. It won't be back at Celtic. Trust me, it's not happening with Celtic. It's Dan Cassie. It won't be back at Celtic. What the Snickers want? I really need that. I've got a marathon I can give him. Lol, says Mr. Quinn. Anyway, I'm going to move on for that story. But the Kieran Tierney thing has not went away. There's loads of people in the media today been talking about it, but there is also talk about, there's been talk about Jota returning, but there's nothing, it's all hearsay. I mean, it's just people picking up. I'd love to know who originally started this story for Jota, and I don't think it was McCowan for the Mail, was it? I mean, I don't think it was him. I'd like to know who started it, because it seems to just be that people are just jumping onto it to try and get clicks online and headlines, and people are just mentioning it now just for, oh yeah, there's lots of talk. There's lots of talk in social media, but when is the day that we actually believed until there was concrete evidence? And there's no concrete evidence that Celtic have even inquired about Jota, never mind bringing him back. But there is a player that Celtic have been in touch with in the summer, Mikael Ange Bilwashka. I probably pronounced that wrong, as I always do, but I don't care. Michelangelo, the goddess. Oh God, remember when we had Odin the Warrior? Jesus. That's just not going to go well, is it? But anyway, long-term target for Celtic has been reported allowed to leave Belgian club Royal Antwerp. It's been suggested the 23-year-old who was going to be a $5 million deal for Celtic in the summer until he got injured, has been told that he could leave the club. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Today, Stephen Welsh went over to Belgium to complete his loan move to the Belgian side that had been chasing him since the summer. The Belgian club do not have an option to buy with Stephen Welsh, so he is just going on there on loan until the end of the season to hopefully get some game time. Another player that's been suggested that may leave Celtic. Now, if we go for Mikael Ange, it's been said that Celtic are looking allegedly for €4 million to get rid of Louis Palma. But at the same time, there's noises coming out of Celtic saying that Brendan Rodgers would like to keep Louis Palma to the end of the season. Brendan Rodgers is playing a double-edged sword just now with players and transfers. I think he's playing the situation where we will let players go if we get players in, rather than just saying to players, tell people the truth. Do you know what I mean? And it's like this whole situation would be a lot more easier if we got the truth. Anyway, let's listen to what some Premier Sports were saying about Celtic tonight.
I think you sum it up pretty well there.
Spit it out.
Congratulations, finally.
Listen,
explain something.
If you keep doing the show, Michael, eventually you get one right. I mean, that's like the story of your broadcasting career.
Look, I said a couple of weeks ago that the slight danger for Celtic is that with the big Champions League games coming up, that they're going along fine. They're going along okay. But it's just question mark lingering over, are they going to be able to kick up a level again for these big European games, which are really, massive?
That's my worry. That is my worry. With the level that the Celtic squad has been playing at over the last couple of weeks, and let's face facts, it's not been good. The performance levels have dipped. Rio Hatati's form has dipped. Too many players have been off games, and when coming back into the Champions League, and I understand players. I heard a comment today from one ex-football player saying, "Look, when it comes to big games." When it comes to teams like Motherwell, Dundee United, Rangers coming up against Celtic, you pull out big performances, and that's what happens as a football player. You find these big performances in you when you come up against Celtic, and all the teams in Scotland do it, including Rangers. And can our players do that? Can we get back into that mode of this is the big level? And that's my worry about going into the game against Young Boys. But we've got an important game against Kilmarnock in the Cup well before that. So you can see Boys 67. Let's put that one to bed straight away. You will not see Brendan Rodgers sneaking out the back door. I'm not even going to entertain that kind of talk. He's not going to sneak out the back door. So let's just put that to bed right away. He will not sneak out the back door. And definitely not in the middle of the season, and definitely not at the end of this season. There's a situation going on. The way that I read yesterday's little bit of a meltdown by Brendan is there's a situation going on behind closed doors at Celtic. There's a lot of speculation on the type of player that Brendan wants in. There's the speculation that there's a player at Celtic that Brendan Rodgers likes and would have liked to keep keep at Celtic. I think Brendan had the idea, if we can keep Greg Taylor and bring in Kieran Tierney, you've got a formidable pair of players that can swap, and you can give each player a bit of time out, and you can rest the players. And I think ultimately that's maybe what Brendan Rodgers wanted to do for Celtic, and having 2 Scottish international caps, both fine for that one position, but Greg Taylor wants more money. Ultimately, he's got to look after himself, as Brendan says, but it is what it is. Right, let's get back to listening to this mob on Premier Sports to see what they had to say about Celtic before we go into some other ones that you'll like.
Because a lot of the perceived success will be determined on how they get on in these games. Certainly, talking about Saturday, Sunday, forgetting it was just yesterday.
Before he goes on, do we, in the comments, do we tell me if you think that the Champions League, the final 2 games, do you think it's been a successful Champions League campaign so far? I might even start a poll with that. Let's do a quick poll. With 2 games remaining to go and with the points tally that we've got, we don't need to do a poll. Has the Champions League been a success so far this season with 2 games remaining and the fact that we could still finish? So, for the fact that they've just said Brendan Rodgers' success this season will be measured on the Champions League campaign. So I'm asking the question, has the Champions League campaign been a success so far? I think it has. I think it's going to be as, and I think we can look back, whatever happens between these last 2 games, and hopefully we'll have 4 games, a minimum of 4 games left in the Champions League. If we get the 4 games, we get an extra 1.4 million for the 2 playoff games, which goes straight into the coffers at Celtic. So as far as I'm concerned, it's been a successful Champions League campaign compared to what we are used to in the Champions League. So it's just interesting that he said that. I do not think that Brendan Rodgers' season hinges on what we do from now on in the Champions League, and I just don't get that at all, that comment. So interesting. Right, let's get back to here.
Against St Mirren, it was good. You know, it's all there. Good, quick play, which you have to do against teams like St Mirren, who are difficult to break down. Good deliveries from the wide areas, and just generally, Celtic have got a really good rhythm about them. They've got a good flow, and I don't think you could be expecting much more from them in terms of comfortable victory, 3 goals, clean sheet. Things are going along fine.
So why then did Brendan Rodgers take it upon him to moan about the fact that fans were bemoaning about the first 20 minutes of the game, which kind of happens at Celtic Park? You hear that all the time. You hear that in Champions League nights, Brendan. And you hear the fans getting a bit trepidation setting in, anticipation setting in, and a bit nervousness setting in. It's fans, that's what they do. And especially the first 20 minutes of a game at home, after the performance that we had away at Ibrox. So you were hoping a big performance. And when Brendan Rodgers can talk about tactics and pulling the ball back and positions of play and not losing the ball and keeping the ball in control, etc., etc. But if the fans on the sidelines feel a bit of nervousness from the players, and they feel that they're going to revert back into remember, they've just seen a game where the defenders were taking 3 or 4 touches before passing the ball. And thankfully, they didn't revert to that. So, why was Brendan getting his knickers in a twist, really?
With the slight caveat of, you wouldn't say they're going into the European games as fluently as they were at the start of the season.
But then I don't think anyone in the Champions League is going into the Champions League this side of the Christmas period with the same level that they went in at the beginning of the season. So, I mean, I can only talk about the likes of Real Madrid. They've been absolutely terrible up and down this season, but they're starting to find a little bit of form. It was boring yesterday, the first 20 minutes. Chilpao, how many? We could say that so many times that it's boring. But anyway, let's move on from that. And let me just see. Chris Boyd talking about Celtic today also.
they have got, you know, here you go, there's the ball, we'll sit and we'll soak up, and then boom, because in transition, I mean, wow, the pace, Nicholas Cunha, so I thought was outstanding. You know, and sometimes, you know, I know Brendan Rodgers had a little go at the fans, and probably rightly so to an extent as well, because it does frustrate you as a player when you're out there and, you know, you're being told, you know, to you know, it was Greg Taylor, you know, to go back and start again and change the point of attack and move it in a different direction to maybe open up a door somewhere else for the team to go through. And fans, you know, that they're not happy about it, and because I mean,
but the fans don't know that's. I mean, it's obviously a tactical manoeuvre by the manager, so the fans should be then getting on to the manager, not the players.
Celtic fans have been spoiled the last few years the way that they play football. So going back to go and start and go again, there's nothing wrong with that.
What did you make of it? I mean, the result in the game has almost become
negligible,
secondary to
exactly
what Brendan Rodgers said and how he said it after the game. He looked properly angry, didn't he, about, well, two things. We'll maybe get on to the Kieran Tierney, Greg Taylor alleged disrespect, but that fans need to trust the team, trust the manager, don't get on their backs when it's 0-0 after 20 minutes.
It's hard because you're playing against teams that they're organised against you. They're trying to close as many gaps as they can, and at times if you move it fast enough, then the gaps open up and maybe somebody switches off or breaks ranks, then that's when the tempo changes.
And it's interesting that, I mean, this is obviously two ex-professional football players that know the game inside out, know the tactical changes and manoeuvres that Brendan Rodgers is trying to do within the game. But Brendan Rodgers has brought this situation. Brendan Rodgers has completely brought this situation upon the club, and he's made this. He's made it all about him. He's made it all about Greg Taylor. He's made it all about the fans. He's brought that negativity into the public domain that wasn't there. It wasn't there at the end of the game. As far as I'm concerned, it was a 3-0 win, and it was job done, and it was a good performance. Everything should have been positive after the game. If you weren't at the game, you couldn't hear. When you're listening on TV, you couldn't hear the Celtic fans singing Kieran Tierney. I mean, I definitely didn't have it. But the fact that Brendan Rodgers wanted to be the sole centre of attention, he wanted to bring Kieran Tierney into the... Well, he was asked about the Kieran Tierney transfer situation. And he turned that on its head and said, what about Greg Taylor? What about Greg Taylor? They're singing Kieran Tierney's name. This is Celtic's fault. I mean, I still have the picture of the two of them together. No, I've turned the picture down, haven't I? I mean, the picture of Kieran Tierney and Brendan Rodgers in London. The Celtic Foundation would have asked permission. The Celtic Foundation don't just put pictures out without getting nod from upstairs. It just doesn't happen. The Celtic media team do not put out pictures without it getting cleared by someone at the club. If they put out, if that picture with Brendan Rodgers and Kieran Tierney was put out, the two pictures by the Celtic Foundation, if that was put out without the club's knowledge, and even though there was the chance or the contract talks may have started on that day, Celtic's to blame for this situation, and Brendan Rodgers then bring it into the public domain yesterday that he was pissed off and he was angry. I just think that there was no need for it whatsoever yesterday, and I think Brendan Rodgers maybe sat at the end of it and goes, do you know what, I was pissed off and my emotions got the better of me. I think that Brendan Rodgers would have went in, and John Kennedy, do you know what would be funny? Brendan walks back to his office, right? And there's John Kennedy sitting on his seat with his feet up on the table. And he's going, that was a fucking mess, Gaffer, wasn't it? and you can see it. I mean, you can see John Kennedy just sitting there with his feet up on Brendan's desk, sitting in his chair. And the Gaffer goes, the fuck are you sitting in my chair for? You keep on acting like that, I'll be sitting in your chair permanently, boss. And maybe hopefully that he would have the balls to turn around and say, yeah, have your Snickers bar, get yourself sorted out. I trust Brendan's judgment, says Chilpel. The guy's a winner. He wants the best for Celtic. We might not like it at times, but we hate not the manager. I'm trying to read through the loads of comments. I think Brendan Rodgers is just putting on a show. Was he putting on a show? A massive fixture list ahead of us the rest of January. Everyone needs to calm down. Yeah, they do need to calm down, Anthony. But I think this was totally Brendan Rodgers doing this, and I think that anyway we need to move on from it.
And it's tough because they've got a set way of playing that they want to have the ball.
On them so early in the game, because it is impossible. Doesn't matter how good a team you are, it is impossible to go out and score early goals in every single game. And even when they do that, sometimes teams just sit in and like.
Yep.
I mean, leaving Celtic Park right now 1 or 2-0 would feel like a victory for some teams.
Yep.
So they're not going to come out and have a go so it's going to be the trend going forward.
I think it's
and we all know that. And we need to accept it. We need to accept it. Anyway, what other Celtic news is kicking about this evening before we need a little bit of hilarity back in our life? Celtic statement saying it really hard for the power cut. Jesus, really? You're a bit late with that. Celtics. A lot of people still talking West Ham and Brentford rejected by Arsenal star with Emirates. See, this is coming out of London. It's a Arsenal. It's London World website. West Ham and Brentford rejected by Arsenal star with Emirates exit imminent. It says Arsenal defender has struggled for minutes this season with is set for a fresh challenge back at his former club. West Ham and Brentford have had transfer interest rejected by Arsenal defender Kieran Tierney, with the fullback poised to complete a move to return to Scotland and Celtic. The 27-year-old is fallen out and blah blah. We all know the situation. Transfer specialist Graham Bailey has reported that West Ham and Brentford, along with Leicester City, had shown interest in recruiting Kieran Tierney. The Hammers deal had been agreed in principle. Interesting that it's believed that the Hammers had a deal agreed in principle for Tierney, but he did not want that move to West Ham. Interesting. So it looks like that Celtic are going to get Tierney. All the talk coming out of London is the fact that he is going to come back to Scotland. Anyway, I think that we need to have a little bit of I'm going to just see what the comments. We're pissed off with Taylor staying in the team, says Paul Baird. We can voice whatever we like as fans, says Black Square Sausage. Everyone is still emotional from the Derby loss. There's 2 trophies left to win, says Mike Powers. I think so. I think people making mountains out of molehills, as far as I'm concerned. Richard, really, it's not fans that's making the mountain out of the molehill. It's Brendan Rodgers' comments after the game. Brendan Rodgers, I mean, we're still keeping the conversation going about the whole situation with Brendan Rodgers being upset with the fans. Brendan Rodgers did not have to talk about that. He was asked about the contract situation. Is there any truth in the situation for Tierney? That's all he was asked. He was asked about contract. He was asked about transfers. He didn't have to talk about Greg Taylor. He didn't have to talk about the fans singing Kieran Tierney. He went on a bit of a meltdown, and the boss will admit it himself. He probably sat in his office after it going, fuck, this is going to be all over the papers tomorrow. Fucking fuck it. And fucking Greg Taylor's walking about with his fucking dummy that's been spat out all over the floor. It's not people making a mountain out of a molehill. It's the fact that Brendan Rodgers didn't need to do it, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, people are pissed off with Taylor and the transfer. Ian says, I've watched this channel for a long time now and love it, but I think Brendan Rodgers was right. Taylor has been a good player for us. There's no need for this. Ian, no one is saying that. Listen, I've said it from the summer. Regarding Greg Taylor is in the exact same position as we were in last year with David Turnbull. David Turnbull last season kept Rio Hatate out the team at the beginning of the last season. David Turnbull was immense during pre-season, but Celtic weren't offering him the money that he wanted. So when it came to the winter transfer window, there was only one option for Celtic to do. Greg Taylor should be given that same opportunity. He should be told that you're not signing the contract, and that's the stance that I've always made. Now, this supposed witch hunt by people on Greg Taylor, it's the same situation that we had with Turnbull a year ago. But people are making it. They're making a mountain out of a molehill of the fact that Taylor's walked up the tunnel, stropped away up the tunnel after the Ibrox game, and stropped away up the tunnel after hearing fans singing Kieran Tierney. What if people start singing about Jota in the next game? If the fans just take the total piss out of Brendan, right? If the fans take the total piss out of Brendan, start singing about Ange Postecoglou and start singing about Jota. Is Kuhn going to spit his dummy out, right? And I think we need to bring a little bit of hilarity back into this and have a little bit, a reality check. But, do you know, what if we just, it's the form we have found since Ange has been around that has taken us to the top of the league. Top of the league and looking down on the Rangers, it's the only explanation I have found. Come on. I mean, people need to have a little bit of, we need to smile and wave and be happy. And don't worry about a little thing, because every little thing is going to be all right. Anyway, let's get to the comments. Angling Ayrshire says, as you said earlier in the video, no one's allowed to run down their contract apart from Larsson. So get it signed and get it sold. Exactly, Angling Ayrshire. Exactly. We'll start doing the Ronnie Roar. Oh, man. Start doing the Ronnie Roar. That would be hilarious. Everybody gets their tap off. And go, hey, yay. Yay! She'd sing Martin O'Neill, skip to Lou Macari just to piss Brendan off. And that's the kind of hilarity that we need back at football. You know, let's chant Paul McStay and see McGregor's face. Oh man, 13 points and overachieving in Europe. Yes, Big John, we are. And that's why the question, there was a question on one of the podcasts earlier, the Paid Journal podcast, saying that they're worried about can Brendan Rodgers will be judged this season on how well Celtic do in the Champions League. And I think it's been a fantastically successful season. The amount of points that we've got has far, I think we're on track to what I suggested that we would get. And we're on track to at least try and get to the playoff positions. If we can get to the last 16, that would be a phenomenal season for the Celtic team. But some people in the media think that Brendan Rodgers will be judged whether or not he makes it to the last 16. I don't think that he will, ultimately. So I asked the question, has the Champions League been a success so far? And with under 96 votes, 95% say yes. 5% say no. The ones that say no, I'm going to read the comment section now. The ones that say no, sing for James McCarthy. There's only one, James McCarthy. Oh man, I think about it. Jesus. Hibs fan here. Think about David Gray. He never took the hump when the Highbees. Rodgers is enigmatic. He is that, Old Bailey. There's something I said in the video this morning. I think that there's something went on in the background, and it's just made Rodgers snap before he came out to the press conference. And Typhoon McFlustery says, Baz, how many games are we playing this month? Is it 8 or 9? It's a lot of games with tired players and staff. Typhoon, I think you're right, because normally at this time of year we've played that big busy period during December, and the players and the staff are now sitting in Dubai or wherever it is that Celtic would have went to if there was a winter break this year, and they would have 4 or 5 days of rest before they got back into training, and then they've got a week's solid training in Dubai before they then come back to Celtic Park. And that's usually the point that Brendan Rodgers gets in some tactical training. This year we don't have that. And listen, Celtic don't have a right to just moan about that, because okay, we've got 2 Champions League games. Other teams will not have 2 midweek games that Celtic and ultimately Rangers have still got 2 midweek games in Europe also. The fact that Celtic do have these successful teams all play these busy periods, right? So, and you don't see managers in other teams bemoaning about the fact that they've got all these games coming up. It's if you want to be a big team, and Celtic are a big team in a small pond, but when it comes to a European sense, we're small fish. We're punching above our weight as far as I'm concerned this year, and we're doing a lot better than a lot of people would have thought. But anyway, we move on for it. Right. I'm going to cheer the situation up now because I think it's went on far too far, the whole chat about Brendan. KT's songs seem to annoy Brendan more than Greg Taylor, says Carly. I never even heard Celtic fans singing it. I don't even know what Kieran Tierney song they were singing. I can't remember Kieran Tierney having a song at Celtic the first time round. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've forgotten about it because it was that long ago. I hope Brendan had a large whiskey and a joint when he got home last night and calmed down a bit. Or maybe he just had a Snickers and got back to normal. Hopefully his missus went, I've got one in the fridge for you. Want it? There's a Snickers for you. I hope his missus has that kind of attitude towards him. Anyway, let's think about the Broken Brothers. Let's think about the Broken Brothers. And all Brendan has done is he's managed to take away the meltdown madness. And he's letting Clement off. This is what Brendan's doing. I've just figured it out. I've worked it out. Brendan wants to make sure that the media spotlight is taken off the Rangers manager by letting Rangers win 3-0 at Ibrox. I'm saying that facetiously, obviously. I don't think that we ever meant to get beat 3-0. But by letting Brendan Rodgers allowing Rangers that victory in a dead rubber game, it's always dead rubber games that they win. Maybe he was trying to take the spotlight and keep his fellow manager in a job. And then when he seen that Rangers dropped points yesterday, yet again, and he felt the need to take some pressure off of his fellow manager, but his fans, the Sevconian fans, do not feel the same way.
Needs to go. Right? Big Phil needs to go. There's no two ways about it. Big Phil is a fud. He's a walking fud. There's just no accountability with this guy. Right? I mean, you get the high of beating Celtic, and now this jabroni can't even put his hands up and be like, I'm the one that dropped the ball. I'm the one that dropped the ball against Hibs. I'm the one that dropped the ball against St Mirren Motherwell. It's always an excuse for this guy, right? Should it have been a penalty? Yeah. Did that cost us a game? No. If you think Hadji, that penalty being given cost Rangers the game, I have another thing to tell you, man. It didn't cost us the game. It's an absolute... He's got to go, man. I agree, Max. Right? Big Phil's got to go. And I'll be there. Dens Park.
I'll be there.
Looking at Big Phil square in the eyes. What are you doing here, Phil?
What are you doing here, Phil?
But yeah, he's got to go, doesn't he, man? I'm actually just sick of talking about it. Like,
oh man,
new logo for me. Same old Rangers. Chilly and Govan. It's pretty nippy, I'll tell you that much. Fucking took one of my gloves off there, and I had the.
Did you smell the glove? Did you smell the glove? Anyway, that's enough of Stevie. He's had a bit of a meltdown today. We can cross over the road because there's the look on these guys' faces every time, man. Not total bottle merchants or what?
There's a kind of long way to go. But I think where the board need to be really careful, if they are not going to take action and dismiss Clement, how they spin that and how the narrative that they put out with that, because
you spin me right round, baby, right round like a record, baby.
I think it's very easy for people to look at that and say, go back to the point that you've just made. Are you then settling for second best?
Yep.
Because are you now saying that it's okay to be 13 points behind Celtic, that this manager is doing a good enough job? So Patrick Stewart has an interesting kind of few months, I think, coming up, because I don't know what you think, Wolf, but I don't think they're going to, unless we go on a run where we don't win any games coming up over the next month or so, I don't see them acting on this manager. But how they explain that, I'm not sure how they square that circle, because I think people will turn that narrative into you're accepting second best.
Yeah, that's going to be some very, very difficult for Patrick Stewart and the board, whatever the makeup of the board's going to be.
Simply second best.
To square. You're right. I don't see the manager going anywhere. unless there's a catastrophic run of results, unless we maybe lose 3, 4, 5 on the run, which I really can't see us doing, because
Agent Brendan has done it. Agent Brendan has done it. Brendan has done it. He's kept Phil in a job. Yeah, and he's took the limelight right off him yesterday with the Scottish media. I'll be going, I need to save Big Phil here. I need to save him, because it's like, we've got Champions League, and I've got it. The pennies just dropped. The pennies dropped. Right. Brendan Rodgers has just flipped a coin, and he's went, wait a minute here. I need to think, because if we've got these Champions League games coming up, right? And if Phil gets sacked before it, it kind of takes a bit of limelight off us. And if we didn't do well in the Champions League, and if things didn't go to plan, we need some hilarity, because they're going to come down on us like a ton of bricks. The Scottish media is going to be all over us if we didn't hit last 16. So I need to keep Phil in a job, because he's my backup plan. I think he's my backup plan. I'm telling you, that's what Brendan Rodgers has done.
It's a bit ridiculous that the Ibrox form's fantastic. I mean, we've dropped 2 points at Ibrox, and that was in probably our worst performance of the season against Dundee United. But we've only won 3 games away from home. We can't kick our own arse away from home. You know what I mean?
Everybody else can kick your arse though.
We've lost 7 goals in the last 3 away games. That's ridiculous. For a team like Rangers, we go anywhere
For a team like Rangers, you're only 12-year-old. Calm yourself, man.
in Scotland and score 3 goals, we have to win the game. You know what I mean? There's 3 goals shipped against Hibs. You know what I mean? We scored 3, we shipped 3. It's unacceptable. I mean, the manager came out after the game yesterday and said that when he was asked about transfers, he said that Patrick Stewart's going to come out and address that situation. I've never heard a manager say that before. Say a chief executive or a member of the board, the chairman, whatever's going to come out and tell you what the transfer strategy is. That's normally the manager that deals with the transfer strategy. I mean, I saw a thing just before we came live that the board have recommended Johnny Evans to the manager, and the manager said no thank you. Now, I can understand them saying no thank you to Johnny Evans, but why are the board, who aren't professional football men to any degree, you know, feel that they're in a position to suggest players to the manager? Surely that's down to the management team and the Niels Coppin and all these kind of guys.
Anyway, yeah, there's all sorts going on over there anyway, isn't there? So right, let's see, we've had 245 votes on the poll. Do you need money to buy players at Baz? Do you need money? Yes, the club the club needs money to buy players, and they've obviously got no money. The Huns are skint. But anyway, the Bears talking about Porteous. Jesus, that's bad. I said that to my apprentice today, Baz. Anyway, has the Champions League been a success for Celtic so far? We've kind of forgotten about the Champions League and the journey that we've been on over the season, and I think that the fact that if we can get a good result against young boys, which I think Celtic will do, and the fans will get up in their numbers and back the team, and they're going to do the same down in Birmingham. And I mean, I think that there's over capacity. I mean, I know guys that are going down without tickets, which is ill-advised done that way, but anyway, they are going down without tickets. So has the Champions League been a success? And 95% say yes and 5% say no. So why isn't it been a success? Let's finish it off there. Hold on, because I'm not staying on for a full hour tonight. Finish the poll, and we'll just see what the final result is. See if we lost a percent, and we did. The yes, the yes is lost up 1% tonight. So it was 94%, and it said that the Champions League campaign has been a success so far this season, no matter what happens between now and the end of the Champions League campaign. Over 250 people have voted. Wolf is a real Fenian hater, so I hate what? Johnny Evans has passed it. Jesus. They're not going to go for him. Ernest, Greg ain't good enough, nor Scales, nor either. Need much better, says Studs. Interesting. Right, there's not much more Celtic news kicking around. We could have sat and listened to those clowns all night. They're getting at the good old FTP in the comment section. That's because they know that the comment section sometimes grow a beard again. How you grow? Oh man, they're just absolutely nuts. Right, let me jump back up here. Celtic do have a game this week, which we've all kind of forgotten about. Yes, Celtic do have a game on Wednesday. Celtic entertain Dundee United at Celtic Park. I don't think it'll be a full house at Celtic Park due to the cold weather and it being a midweek game. I think a lot of people are skint, let's face it, at this time of the year. We're not used to as much football in January in recent years at this time of the year. So Celtic do entertain Dundee United, who have won 3 of their last 5 games. Celtic have won 3 of our last 5 games. Also, with a draw, 2 wins and that loss at Ibrox. But the South Koreans have only won 2 of their last games. The team in freefall are Aberdeen. Aberdeen are the disappointment. Such a disappointment. I mean, they've just totally given up, haven't they? We've not seen Ian Aberdeen since they just give up. They've just given up. I feel sorry for Ian Aberdeen. He's such a good supporter of the channel. But Dundee United are kind of flying at the moment. They are sitting in 3rd position. They've overtaken Aberdeen, who are in complete freefall. Dundee United have scored more goals than Aberdeen. They're sitting on +8, whilst Aberdeen are on +2. Will the Dundee United game be another hard game at Celtic Park, or will the Celtic fans back the team from the very off? It's going to be an interesting one. It's one that we're all going to watch with anticipation to see how the fans react to the first minute that the team's coming on the pitch. Who's Michael? What the heck? I don't even want to see what's just been said to me. Dundee United to finish 2nd, that would be a fantastic season. I was kind of hoping that Aberdeen may do that. Anyway, on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening. Mr. Quinn, Mr. Paul Bear, Black Square Sausage, Corey J95, Rab, Danny Cassie, Wilson QW, and everyone else that's commented, Chill Pill, Craig Young, Studs, Ernest, Carly, Hank, Mr. Quinn, Chill Pill, never seen Tam at this meeting, I've not seen his comments, and Paul Baird, etc., and Brown Warrior, to name just a few. And on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening. I shall see you tomorrow morning. Hopefully we may have some transfer news, but until then, Celtic still remain top of the table, looking down on the Rangers. And then the only explanation that I've found is that the form that we've found since Brendan's been around is taking us to the top of the league. We shouldn't really wind him up, should we? He might feel a bit, not amused at all.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party.